Today on the Hobby Bench, I'll be playing Moon Knight for Marvel Crisis Protocol. So today I'll be working on Moon Knight, and you can see I have just a simple gray primer laid down initially. And you think when you're working with him, well, Moon Knight's white, so I'm going to start off with white. But really, that's not a good idea. I sort of found this out and discovered this a little bit myself when I was working with She-Hulk and working the Jumper. White is just sort of an oversaturation of color, if you will. You need something else to bring out some definition. So I'm going to actually be working on some different shades of gray and build that up. And first I'll be starting off with blue-gray pale. Now I'm going to be doing a pretty copious dry brush here, really to give it a little bit more depth and really add more of a base coat. And so you're just going to go through a good dry brush like you normally would, trying to pick out the higher details. And you might be ending up laying it just a little bit heavier than you normally would. But there's a lot of folds and creases and such in the figure that make it pretty good to work with and bring out a lot of bit of detail. And so I'll slowly be working through this and just laying down an initial coat of blue-gray pale. I've got that first layer of dry brushing down. You can see it leaves a pretty good foundation of a color, just highlighting things just a bit. So we're going to add some gradation to that now and work on the next coat, which will be a lighter coat of sky gray. And it's a lighter color of gray, just a little bit more brighter color. And just like before, we're going to leave a copious amount on there if we can. This is just going to sort of build up those layers and lead a little bit more of that dark gray from the primer that'll be in the crevices and cracks and give that a little bit more of a shading look. Now that we've got that done, you can sort of see we have here, it's getting a little bit of lighter color on that. And so now we're going to go through and give a good dry brush of white. And this is just sort of adding on another layer and sort of blending those colors in. This one, I'm going to go a little bit lighter on that. And here I'm more like a traditional dry brush, if you will, just a lighter touch, getting a little bit more of the highlights on his cape and on his staff and such. And this is just more a gentler touch. Finally, we have that dry brush down on the white. Now we're going to sort of go back and blend in a little bit more white on other areas on his thighs and on his cape. But we're also going to sort of pick out some details for his chest and for his belt. I'll probably go with straight white itself, and that will really sort of make those stand out a bit more. Painting out his emblem and painting out his eyes and on his belt. And that'll sort of, because it's just such a bright white, that'll give a little bit more contrast to his other parts. It'll be like a white gray. And here you can see I'm just slowly going through that and want to pick up more on his staff. Also going to be working more on the edges of the cape, really to get those highlights on the edges and sort of, bring out that contrast a bit more. Now, this point here, we've gotten really all the edges sort of done, and you can see on their chest, I've got that symbol that really sort of stands out. And you can barely make it out here, but even for the eyes, I painted out there's this normal white, and that just really makes it look pretty good and stand out a bit more from the rest of the figure. And you can see, it looks pretty good, but still there's just a bit more gray than I probably would like. So I'm going to try to blend that in a little bit more and add a little more white to it. Here I've got that blended in pretty well. I like a lot of the white, sort of getting out a little bit more of the highlights that I need and sort of subduing that gray somewhat. Now I'm going to pull out a couple of contrasts just to sort of finish up on the base. I'm going to be using muddy ground for the brickwork lying in there. And for the cracks in the cement, I'm going to be using greasy black. And this is pretty good tone to have. It really sort of fills in all those little cracks and that little detail and makes it sort of stand out. At this point here, you just sort of want to be careful in painting this in and just try not to get it all over the place. And as is a contrast paint, it'll work into the detail of the brick and give it a good look. what I appreciate about this is that I didn't want to use maybe an orange or a red brick, something that would stand out too much. I wanted something that would match the muted tone of the figure. And here you are, Moon Knight is done. It's a little more subtle, a little bit more gray than your really bright white, but I dig it. I like that way the symbol and his eyes really still stand out in his belt, having that pure white. And just sort of blending in that white and grays over the gray primer gave him a great look. I think he's ready to get on the tabletop and join my Defenders list.